So, as a scientist observer, one of the things that I've seen in recent news in terms of science developments, activity, in terms of ecosystem, geology, earth, atmosphere, terrain, terrestrial, non-terrestrial, is that the sun apparently is getting hotter every day. Someone seems to believe that the sun is getting hotter every day, which is very interesting because the sun, as it goes through its cycles, 11-year cycles, ultimately reaching the solar minimum, electromagnetic solar activity is at a minimum. The sun flatlines, sunspots dissipate. Someone has said that in addition to all the preceding, that the sun on some level is getting hotter each and every day. On what level, on what scale, I don't know. It's definitely something to look into. And I'm not saying that that person said that it's alarming or that it's unusual. I'm just simply saying that someone seems to believe that the sun is getting hotter. What I gathered from that is gradually, but that's just, my thought. I don't know if they meant gradually. I'm guessing they did, and that's just a guess. The other thing that I saw is scientists have said that with regard to the shifting of the poles, which happens at some time because it's always happened, it's cyclical, that if you look at GPS information, global positioning system information, satellite information in terms of where coordinates are, the grid, and you observe that the locations on Earth in relation to what we see on GPS, those points, those data points have shifted. They've moved some distance. And so in other words, where you have like true magnetic north, right, where you have the North Pole, where the North Pole is supposed to be, over time, that information shifts, it changes. And so where GPS believes that the North Pole is, the actual true North Pole is, for example, like somewhere different than what GPS is saying it is. And so GPS has to be adjusted in relation to the micro shifting of the poles. The other thing about the poles flipping is that I saw some body of information some weeks ago. I believe it's been over a month now, where the flip, right, that takes place when it does, it takes place over time. It's not just like a flip, like instantly, like it, in just one fell swoop. It's been overdue for like 500,000 years, or something like that, like some amount of time. I mean, even if it's more like 50,000 years. I know there was a 5 and a 0 in there, and I'm assuming it's not 50 years or 500 years. But it's something like that. It's overdue. So that also lends credence to some theories that the Earth is somehow being manipulated. It's geoengineered in some way by advanced beings that we are unaware of. And the other thing is that there is and I saw this, another update, another newsworthy piece of information to discuss. Evidently, the Earth, in terms of solar flare activity, has been protected in some way by some type of layer of protection just within proximity to our atmosphere. And scientists are saying that the layer of protection that protects the Earth from various types of solar flare activity, at least they're claiming they have no idea how it formed, which is You know, I mean, come on, like someone has to know, right? But what they were saying was that if you look at solar flare activity and like the Carrington effect and different types of like solar events, now there is somehow a buffer zone whereby when there is coronal mass ejection, that's CME, when the sun spits out coronal mass ejections, when it ejects materials that sometimes come into proximity of the Earth, there is now somehow, some way, this very strange, like, protective layer there to try to offset that can in some way offset certain CME events. So someone was saying, well, how did it get there? How did this form? It looks like it was maybe put there. Like, how was it put there? Well, naturally, that would be an advanced civilization, breakaway civilization, perhaps, outside that of our own. And then the other thing is, how long has it been there? You know what I mean? It's like we're finding out about it now because someone is letting the cat out the bag and revealing that information. So this long overdue flip hasn't happened. There's also a protective layer, buffer zone for solar flare activity. Man, I mean, the odds of those things happening together like that, I mean, man, if you do the math on that, like, how is that even possible? And then there was the news piece where it was seen through satellite that there was a craft that had flown into the sun. And people pointed it out and said, hey, you know, we're observing the sun, and there's clearly a craft that has flown into the sun, and it's just kind of like docked there. And there appears to be some type of activity underway in which some type of energy is being collected, like plasma is being collected from the sun. So I took a look at it, and I was thinking to myself, you know, I keep an open mind. I mean, people are saying this. Let me see what it looks like. Let me see what it looks like to me. Sure enough, there appeared to be a craft, technologically advanced, intelligently driven craft that docked at the sun and had some type of contrivance, some type of technology with which to collect what looked like plasma. I mean, how would I know? You know, it's plasma, and I'm guessing that's what's being collected. I could be wrong. Maybe they're just doing some tests, you know, just like analyzing the sun. But regardless, there's definitely an intelligently driven, controlled, that is, craft that had flown into the sun. So seeing that and knowing that people observe that around the globe, I thought, that's really interesting. I bet NASA is going to very quickly do the damage control by doing what NASA ordinarily does when there are leaks of information like that and people figure out certain facets and aspects and pieces of the secret space program puzzle. So guess what NASA does? NASA does exactly what I said NASA does. A few days go by. It's been a week or so. NASA reveals that we're going to start working on traveling to the sun. We're going to create a craft that will be launched into the sun to go and study the sun. So that should fucking tell you, dude, that craft was probably our craft. And so NASA's way of covering it up is to pretend like, well, we're going to try to do our own exploration. We're not saying that was an alien craft. We're not saying that we saw a craft. We hear what people are saying. We're also going to try to do just that. It's like, come on, dude, that was us doing just that. Like, stop fucking lying, man. Like, okay, so we have the capability to fly into a goddamn fucking sun. Wow. Like, I mean, I've known this for years, but it's like, still, it's like, so when you look at thermophiles and you look at extremophiles, right? Human perception of heat, energy, light, and magnetism. If you put your finger in a light socket with metal, right? You're gonna zap yourself, right? It's just like zap. Okay? It's not good. Don't do that. Don't ever fucking do that. Not legal or business advice. Just caveat, don't fucking put metal or your finger in a light socket. So, with or without metal. Just don't fucking do it. So, humans have this belief that electricity is dangerous. Black hole is dangerous, right? Heat energy is dangerous. Well, obviously, arson is fucking dangerous, right? Fire is dangerous. Well, if you're an extremophile or a thermophile, you can actually exist in extreme heat conditions. Those organisms, and they are living organisms, those thermophiles were designed by the universe, God, Matrix, to withstand lava flow inside a volcano. That's right. Organisms that were created to withstand the most extreme heat conditions. Imagine that. Like, our skin would fucking just like melt off, just like, and that's just like whoomp, and it's just like, dissipated, right? Just flame, just like whoop, poof, gone, right? But these other organisms, they've been designed to withstand fire, heat, plasma from the sun, lava fucking flow. I mean, and not just that, but they apparently thrive in those environments, in those conditions. It's like, what the fuck? So you see how amazing the universe is? There are living organisms that can withstand the sun. So there could be extremophiles and thermophiles in and on the sun, thriving. Because we know that they're in volcanoes on Earth. And they're living, and they're thriving. They are alive inside the flow of lava. So those alive things, those organisms, they have consciousness because they are alive. I mean, it's even been found that plants have consciousness. As nutty as that sounds, I mean, they're alive. They have some type of sensory apparatus. They're able to sense what is around them in the environment of space-time. They're alive. They're plants. It's vegetation. Do they think like humans? Probably not, but there's some sensing and thinking in the way of how plants think. So thermophiles, extremophiles that exist in incredibly, or rather in extreme heat zones, environments, conditions, they have some type of sensing apparatus ability as well. The capability, the ability to sense. So that's really interesting. So we have materials on Earth, NASA, obviously DARPA, the military, CIA, our government, U.S. intelligence, military intelligence, and civilian defense science intelligence community. We have materials on Earth that can withstand the heat of the sun. It's pretty fucking amazing. So now that NASA has revealed that, got to ask yourself, well, how long have we had that type of technology? Because if NASA and DARPA and CIA, if they reveal anything to you, it's because it's existed for well over a decade. So 10 years ago, when people were fantasizing about these interstellar deep space missions and so forth, we've already been doing those. And so you can find information on the web about a mission to a planet called Serpo. That's really interesting. So I saw this because our government is really tricky, man. It's really crafty. Going back before the ancient Egyptians, the Akkadians, the Assyrians, the Sumerians, the, whomever, Anunnaki, right? Darren Kuyu, different pyramid societies. I almost said Hyrule. Did you know? I know. The Legend of Zelda, Hyrule, the pyramid, triangle, right? Do you know what that's derived from? I bet if you ask the creators, the developers, those who conceived of Hyrule is what? Where is Hyrule located in the world of Nintendo? Like the world of Hyrule. Like, how do you think it was conceived? Well, you ever heard of a place called High Brazil? You ever heard of a place in the Rendlesham Forest? Have you ever heard of the Rendlesham Forest? Have you ever heard of the Bermuda Triangle? What if there were to be some type of, say, like a portal? By the way, NASA has admitted that portals exist in space. Where do they go? They don't tell us, but they go somewhere. And apparently they're portals to other areas, quadrants of space-time, dimensions of space-time. And that is information that's declassified. So I'm not making this up. Just go online and type NASA reveals portals in space above Earth, around Earth. And it's right there, man. Like, it's, secrets hidden in plain sight. So you have the Bermuda Triangle, and I've heard the debate, I've heard the talks, I've read the threads and the blogs, and I've been on those blogs and threads. You have people that are like, yeah, man, the Bermuda Triangle's fucking fake, dog. Like, that shit's just all made up, nigga. Like, that, man, come on, man. Like, the Bermuda Triangle's just swamp gas. And I'm like, did you know that our U.S. military and government, there's an executive directive and order that anything that is of any type of phenomena that would suggest in the minds of the public, the psyche, the human, like, public psyche, that there's extraterrestrial activity, the directive is to say that shit is swamp gas? Like, that's fucking declassified, homie. You see a spacecraft, they're like, yo, that's swamp gas. You see a portal open up and shit, they're like, yo, nigga, that's swamp gas. Bermuda Triangle? That shit's fictitious, nigga. That shit's swamp gas. You saw some shadow people? Swamp gas. What else? What else y'all got? Men in Black? Nigga, you smoking swamp gas. You feel me? Like, that's a directive, like, from the U.S. government, the president on down. Go back and look at what Eisenhower was doing, man. Go back and look at Zeta 1 through 4. Go and look at binary and trinary star systems, like 1, 2, 3. Some star systems, they got 2 stars, nigga. Some star systems, they got 3 of them. You ever heard of a company called TriStar? What? You ever heard of Sirius Dog Star? I mean, have you ever heard of an African tribe called Dogon? Dude. So, there's a video, dude, on YouTube. It's pretty fucking dope, to say the least. It's called Knowledge of Forever Time. Dude, I'm a research analyst scientist, yo. I have to study this shit. Like, this is what I went to the university for. Science, mathematics, physics. Dude. Yes, I've taken courses online through Geneva, Switzerland, CERN. I don't know if you know, but you can actually take classes through CERN. Like, you can learn about the Hadron Collider, and you can actually study with professors through CERN, like Geneva. Study particle physics, you know what I'm saying? Looked at some data here and there. Quantum mechanics, took a few courses, man, online through the Korea Advanced Institute for Science and Technology, KAIST. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just looking at some frames, man, of data. You know what I'm talking about? Just, I downloaded the MIT OpenCourseWare for aerospace engineering. There's a course right now, man, you can check out on Coursera. It's spacecraft dynamics, just building spacecrafts and shit. Dude, they're letting the fucking cat out the bag, okay? Like, it's, dude, there's no excuse, man. Like, if you want a job at NASA, dude, you can fucking go online to Coursera, get a certificate for like $49.99. And yo, man, you can fucking go to NASA and just be like, yo, can I see the whiteboard? Okay, here, I got the little whiteboard marker and shit. Let me demonstrate what it is that I know. Boom. You know what I'm saying? They're like, this kid knows his shit. How'd you learn, kid? Coursera, Udemy, fucking, whatever free shit, man, like MIT OpenCourseWare, man, shit. Harvard has it. Harvard was the first to do it. You can study anything through Harvard now for free. You don't get the degree, but you get the knowledge. Don't quote me on this. I believe Stanford followed and does it as well. So you can fucking learn anything, man. Quantum mechanics, quantum physics, hyperphysics. You can learn about CERN and the Large Hadron Collider. You can study particle motherfucking physics online. Black hole research. You can learn about vortex math. Man, vortex mathematics, bro. Like, dude, supersymmetric mathematics. Math supersymmetry. Like Professor Sylvester was talking about, dude. Like, do you even know who I'm talking about? Gates, man. Professor Gates Sylvester, man. He's the one. You can see his video. He's talking with Neil deGrasse, and they're talking about the real world matrix and how when we started to observe the universe on a new level with new technology, with more advanced modern technology than ever before on an unprecedented level of discovery and exploration, we picked up on signals indicating and demonstrating how the universe is woven together in terms of like particle arrangement, right? The arrangement of particles in subatomic particles in hyperspace, dog. And these signals that we were able to sense, that is through some type of lensing, we were able to see and understand through particle arrangement, that, or rather observing particle and subparticle arrangement, and signals and frequencies and information being broadcast by said natural phenomena, that Claude Shannon, a scientist, mathematician, researcher, Claude Shannon from the 1940s, he talked about a code scheme. Not like scheming like, doing dirt, like fucking criminal shit, but a code scheme in terms of like a code structure, an arrangement of, like data that's a code, right? He theorized that there was this certain kind of code system, right? So Professor Gates, who I believe he was the chief scientist under Obama. I'm not going to politicize anything. I'm not even going to say fuck Obama. Oh, wait, I just did. But anyway, under Obama, Gates was like chief scientist, right? And so in the 21st century, Professor Gates talks about how Claude Shannon theorized, just like the Higgs boson, Claude Shannon, similarly to those who theorized that the Higgs boson existed, Professor Gates says Claude Shannon theorized that there was this type of code system that existed. Well, evidently, and this is Professor Gates' information, I'm citing it here on this podcast, and I'm explaining what I know about his presentation in the hope that someone out there who hasn't seen his interview, and by the way, please go and watch Professor Gates as he explains the real world matrix, and you hear commentary from the likes of Neil deGrasse. I've seen it dozens of times, and other lecturers and commentators, other folks who analyze, dissect, and deconstruct the information that he conveyed, communicated, disseminated regarding this, the following. So he says that Claude Shannon knew. He just fucking knew. Of all the different researchers, analysts, of all the different individuals in the field, in various fields of mathematics and physics and statistics and science and this kind of science and that kind of science, and these types of maths and those types of maths, all these academicians with all their different like cryptology, cryptography, all their different codes and ideas and theories about codes like Alan Turing and so on and so forth. These folks didn't know what Claude Shannon knew. But Claude Shannon knew what he was onto, just like Hugh Everett III. Back in the 1940s, Claude Shannon knew. He didn't fully understand what he knew, but he had decoded a piece that is a part of the real world matrix. The real world is a matrix. It was designed. And we know that shit. And it's a fucking code system. Claude Shannon, he tapped into it on some level. He was fucking hip. He was privy. He decoded some of it without fully knowing and understanding what it was that he had stumbled upon, similar to Hugh Everett III. So, Professor Gates goes on to say that the code that Claude Shannon theorized, that he hypothesized, postulated, posited, that now, in today's age, in the modern day context of it all, because from the 40s to the year 2000 is 60 fucking years, right? 1940 to 2000 is 60 years, and then add 20 more years. It's 2020 pretty much. Might as well be, just round the shit off. We're talking about 40 to 2060 years plus another 20. We're talking about 80 fucking years ago, dude. 80 years ago, this man, Claude Shannon, knew about the real world matrix, just like the ancients knew about the real world matrix. I'm not talking about the ancients that created the real world matrix. We're going to go back to the knowledge of forever time in just a moment. Don't think that I forgot about that. So, and by the way, the other day when I was talking about the Einstein, the boson condensate, I said I used the wrong verbiage there. I meant to say teleported. When the material is inside the enclosure, the containment unit, when it's inside the highly durable glass structure, the containment unit, kind of like that movie Independence Day, where the fucking spoiler alert. If you haven't seen Independence Day, don't listen. When they go into the fucking containment unit at Area 51 and the aliens like, die, right? And you're just like, damn, that motherfucker is vexed, right? And the president's like, but isn't there a way that we can like come to some type of peace accord? And the alien's like, fuck you, die. And you're just like, damn, that nigga is heated, right? Okay, well, with the Einstein boson condensate, matter, okay, separating matter from energy. I'm talking about matter, physical, tactile, like matter. In certain conditions, Einstein boson condensate, matter can teleport through a solid motherfucking goddamn structure. God damn it. A motherfucking solid structure. So Ingo Swann, right? Ingo Swann had the ability to stand out in front of an embassy, like a foreign embassy, and extract data using his mind through space-time. He could target certain information within a space, and he could withdraw it. Like he could just like pull it in. Like his mind energy could go out with like a little like feeler, right? And he could just like tap it and like pull it into his mind. Dude, he could go to a fucking embassy, just like walk down the street out in front of an embassy, just strolling like I do. They call me Windsor Grove of EVT in England, right? He just stroll up, like motherfuckers jog and shit, because I've been in and out of embassies and shit. You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers jog in front of embassies. Some of them are FBI and CIA undercover and shit, just like pretending like they're jogging and shit. I'm just saying. So,
you know, keeping tabs and eyes and shit on motherfuckers who go in and out, you know. Plus, they got little spots and shit across from the embassy with fucking telescopic lenses, dog, and fucking hyperspectral imaging so they could see shit through the spectrum. So, Ingo Swann, bro, like, he could just, like, stroll up and be like, hold up, put a little boombox down. They're like, oh, you know, Russians be like, there's some crazy man out in front of the embassy. He's got a boombox and shit, shower cap on. You know what I'm saying? He's doing a little dance and shit, like a little two-step, got my cup and my two-step, right? They're like, this nigga wacky. But it's Ingo Swann picking up on data from inside behind their electromagnetic shields, dog. Dude. Ingo Swann was a true fucking G. So, I mean, he did other amazing shit. He's the one who explained to the terrestrials on Earth. I mean, they already knew, dude. The shadow government already knew, but they wanted to test this nigga, right? Like, oh, so we believe that you have a certain extraordinary ability to send your mind energy out into the matrix. We need for you to look at some targets and tell us what you're picking up on there. What kind of data, what kind of vibes, what kind of energy you're feeling. And he's like, okay, cool, let's do it. Let's rock. So they're like, what we want for you to fix on is a certain coordinate. We'll give you the coordinate. Okay, here are the coordinates. All right, and okay, you see anything? And he's like, I see cities. And they're like, okay, what else? And he's like, it's kind of dark and there's some superluminal crafts that are flying across the surface of this place. They're like, is it a mall? And he's like, nah, dude, I just said it's fucking superluminal crafts. Like, where would there be superluminal crafts, you know, at a fucking shopping center, man? Come on, man, cut the shit. And they're like, all right, tell us more. And he's like, well, I see some strange beings and they're kind of shadowy. It's a little foggy, but there's some beings there. And he's like, wait, hold up. I see some towers, maybe some nuclear reactor bases, it's all advanced technology. And they're like, where do you think this is? And he's like, wait, hold on. This motherfucker knew that while he was observing with his mind energy, he knew that his thought, his mind, his being going out into the matrix, he was being observed by another observer. By another observer observing him observe Mars. So he was like, yo, man, wow, okay, hey, thanks for the chords. I already know where this is. It's Mars. And they're like, he's figured it out. They're like, okay, next target, because they're not going to confirm or deny, you know what I'm saying? They just wanted to know what he could see. Man, Ingo Swann is the one who told the terrestrials that Jupiter has a ring around it. Yeah, man, Jupiter has a ring, you know, like Saturn? Yeah, some people don't know that fucking Jupiter also has a ring around it. I mean, I'm just saying, like, some people didn't know that. I mean, it's obvious now, but guess what? He's the one that fucking knew that shit before NASA admitted to it. How did he do that? Like, he's not using satellites. Oh, wait, yeah, he is, because his brain is a fucking satellite, is a supercomputer. And so anyway, he, as a remote viewer, along with the likes of Joseph McMoneagle, they were part of the Stargate program. I'm not talking about the TV show. TV show's based on the real world shit. You see, because in the real world Stargate program, it began with RVs, those who were remote viewing psychics, people who were true triple blind psychics. You could take them underground, put them fucking 10, 20 miles underground or more, and their mind energy could go out through granite rock and observe distant time, space, time. And that's exactly what they did. So if you read into the remote viewer program more, what you'll find You'll find anecdotes, above top secret information that was later declassified. Some of it, partially, much of it is still classified. So when people learned how to remote view for the first time en masse, in other words, we created our remote viewing unit, brigade, battalion, or however you want to frame it. And I'm saying we as in our US Gov. They were tasked, this first group, this first wave, these first waves of remote viewers, they were tasked to look at other types of cords, because you have technical remote viewing, you have coordinate remote viewing. There are many different types of remote viewing, and I would urge anyone who wants to know more about the subject to look up Ingo Swann and to look up Joseph McMoneagle. Ingo Swann, Joseph McMoneagle, and Russell Targ. And you can look at the SRI program, Stanford, and its relationship to and with CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, dog. And how at some point it became so controversial because of the information that was being revealed and disclosed and divulged and unearthed, that the CIA had to pretend, I should say CIA. I try not to put the in front of CIA. I do on occasion, but I also know the nuance. CIA had to distance itself on the surface from SRI because of the gravity of the intelligence that was being collected. So CIA was pretending like it was not part of any of the, what some people were calling fringe activity, when in fact CIA bankrolled the program the whole time. And to this day, still motherfucking does, is my opinion. So none of this shit's ever disbanded, dude. It's just like total information awareness. I mean, come on, man. Look at Poindexter. Look at Admiral Poindexter. Total information awareness. Banned by Congress. Dude, fuck Congress, man. They just re-imaged that program, man. I'm not saying Congress did. I'm saying the people behind it. I'm not saying Admiral Poindexter's the one behind it. I'm saying, man, he had an idea for total information awareness. You really think they're going to disband some shit like that? Come on, dude. It's the same thing as Russell Targ's program with SRI, Stanford, and CIA, man. They're never going to disband some shit like that, ever. So that's my opinion. Come on, dude. Total information awareness? Invisible micro drones, bro. What? So yeah, because they got to see everything, man. They got to fucking peer through lenses of hyperspace, the hyper lens. So, just saying, look, man, there was a remote viewer who knew about 9/11 before it happened. CIA remote viewer. It's declassified information. Don't take my motherfucking word for it. Just look it up yourself, dude. CIA remote viewer knew about 9/11 in advance. Now, I caution you, I warn you, the remote viewer didn't exactly know that it was the Twin Towers. But it was, it was known in some way. And it is very descriptive. All right, so you can look it up, cross-reference the information, do the research yourself, see what I've seen, what I've observed, okay, through your own parallax view of the universe, multiverse, and you will see exactly what I see and what I fucking know in that CIA. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying it's a good thing because that technology of remote viewing exists. The reason we ramped up our program in the West was the reason was that is the proper English, not was because. The reason, and you'd think I know that. I taught English, math, and science for 10 years in a private school as an English honor student, college honor student. The reason was that the Soviets at the time and the Chinese communists, the communists had an accelerated program. They were already accelerated, and they were just like thrust, like push it, like like full throttle, like forward thrust. Like they were out there, man. They were already opening wormholes and shit. You think I'm fucking crazy? Dude, you need to check out CIA's CREST files that were declassified. The Chinese government has blueprints, schematics to create and open wormholes. I ain't even making that shit up, though. So when you figure that out, you know that the space program that you're shown on TV, for the very first time ever, we've been able to grow vegetation on the moon. Notice they're not saying shit like, oh, and by the way, when we landed on the moon, dude, there are alien crafts like flying overhead and docked and posted, and like we're being observed, like Neil Armstrong and, you know, Buzz Aldrin and those guys. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they saw, you know what I'm talking about? Like the Chinese are just like, we've got the rover, you know, the probe, and we're just kind of on the surface and grew some grass and shit and some plants and, you know, some vegetables and fruits and, you know, got some little topsoil going. And I mean, dude, like I know what the Chinese can do. Like technologically speaking, they've been opening fucking portals, dude, like in hyperspace for like a long ass time. They're just fucking with America because America's like, please don't turn the camera and show the global audience what's really fucking on that moon. Okay? And the Chinese are like, just some vegetation. So, yeah, dude, it's all it's all a game, dude. It's all a grand scheme of global governments. And they know the truth, man. So, and like I said, don't take my word for any on any of this shit. Just research it yourself, man. And you'll find what it is that I have shared with you is 100%. 100. So the Chinese, they have access to their own remote viewers. Were remote viewing us, that is America, and the Russians, that is that was the Soviets. They were observing us. They're remote viewers. So the communists, the Chinese, the Russians working together at times, they were seeing classified information that we have. So let me tell you about HARP. Some people are like, yeah, HARP is a weather control device in Alaska, you know, the High Altitude Oral Research Program. And I'm like, is it really now? How about it's really a machine? I mean, it's an array of antennae, right? Is what it really is. And when you combine all of those different broadcast signals into one focused beam, what you really have is you have a tool that can dampen the signal of a remote viewer trying to fucking glean data, dog. That's just my guess. So at any rate, yeah, I mean, you can fuck with the ionosphere and tweak the weather a little bit too. But, so at any rate, notice how like at CIA and other bases, I won't go into details, but, you know, like National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NASA, DARPA. Have you ever noticed how like, bases, man, they are shielded from electromagnetic intercept? Well, so the Chinese and the Russians, dude, they had a program and they were stealing data from the US. So that's when America said, you know, fuck that noise. We gotta counter this shit. First of all, we gotta experiment with some fucking countermeasures. That would be LSD, MK Ultra, LSD 25. We've got these soldiers in this test bed, which is the Vietnam War. We'll start experiments there. They found Joseph McMoneagle. And Joseph McMoneagle, in his interviews, he talks about how he was able to see the future and thought that it was really odd, and he needed to relate that information to the people who were communicating with him, and they had picked up on it from the information that he was providing because he had been ill, basically traumatized, and that is sick. And so when he sat down with folk and they were like, okay, so tell us what's going on. And he's like, well, okay, I'm just going to, Just gonna say this, man. Not all the time, but in some instances, I'm able to see the future. And they're like, okay, keep talking. So when his information went into a file, someone up the chain read it and was like, oh, okay, interesting. So he has the ability. All right, we need to get him into the pipeline. So they brought him into the Stargate program. Dude. OMG. So as it were, what we learned is that a remote viewer when viewing is using space-time energy to focus from point A to point B. And at the point B, which is the target location, there's an increased number, and I'm just citing scholarly bodies of information on the subject. You can look it up. Like, don't take my word for any of this shit. But it's all true. So, whether you know or not, the focused energy creates an increased number. It propagates an increased number of protons. So like in a room where a remote viewer, in a space that a remote viewer is viewing, there are increased numbers of protons. Some would say there is an increased number because it's one number, but I'm saying it's plural. And it goes either or. So, at any rate, it increases the number of protons within a space. So, if you have a proton detector, if you're going to sense for protons, and where protons are increasing within a space, that could be an indicator. That could be indication that a remote viewer is viewing that space from across space. So, we figured that out. So now you know, if you didn't already know. So when the RV soldiers, that is our battery of remote viewers, was tasked, because the battery is singular, and I'm referring to the individuals that constitute that battery, but the battery itself is singular. When that battery of RV soldiers was tasked to view certain other coordinates, those RV folks were able to see through granite rock and into the mountainside of a secret facility in West Virginia, underground, subterranean, some fucking miles below ground, and inside of electromagnetically shielded filing systems wherein were classified files and documents and software with information contained therein, binary, what have you, written, plain text. These remote viewers were able to read that information, and they were taught how to do that in 5 minutes. Yeah, we'll say 5 to 15 minutes. That alarmed our U.S. intelligence community. And I'm not reading from a script. This is what I know. This is long-term memory. Because I learned of remote viewing when I was a child, and I learned that I was able to remote view. And so I thought, this is strange. What is this and how is this? So I started to do the research. Anyone can learn how to remote view, by the way. So, that being said, let's talk about knowledge of forever time. Knowledge of forever time. The pyramids, Sirius, star constellation, binary, star systems, trinary, star systems. There's a video on the internet. It's called Knowledge of Forever Time. And the author, that is presenter of that video, he theorizes that There were 3, that is the number after 2. There were 3 alien beings, that is 3 advanced aliens, visitors, if you will, so to speak. Those 3 were the progenitors of some degree, that is some part of ancient Egypt. They designed the infrastructures and the technologies and the buildings of ancient Egypt. And he goes into the mathematics and the science behind the pyramids, and how the pyramids are basically a number system. So when you look at it on the surface, you're like, oh, it's rock. Pyramid. Let's see. 1 phase, 2, 3, 4. Base 5. Okay. Right. It's got a little pointy top. It's a pyramid. Right. Okay. Well, when you look at the whole array and how it's structured, the numbers behind it are a code that when you decode that, just like Claude Shannon was talking about, we're going to get back to Claude Shannon in a moment. When you look at that information, when you decode it, when you've reached a certain milestone on the timeline of space-time as humans develop, I won't even say evolve because there's no such thing as evolution, but as humans develop over time, when you reach a point as mathematicians and scientists and researchers and analysts have, you learn that the pyramids are not just what you see in front of you, but they represent code. And the code points to a star system. And it points to who made the pyramids as well. Not just the origin, but who those beings were. He says there were 3 of them. There are 3 of them. Because I'm sure if they could get the earth, when they did, they might still be out there. They could just swap their mind energy out into different shells, different bodies. So they might still be out here somewhere. At any rate, there was Ea, Anu, and Enlil. Okay, so let's go over that again. Ea, like E-A-U, was one of the scientists. Spacefaring, being advanced from other star systems, right? Traversing the stars, heavens. Ea, E-A-U, is the one name. Anu, pretty fucking straightforward. A, N is in November, U. Anu. And then Enlil. E-N as in November, L-I-L. Enlil. So they worked as a group of scientists. They were the basically like the custodians of Earth, and they were themselves tasked with managing Earth at the time and being responsible for development and leaving some shit here, to show motherfuckers in the future so that people would be like, interesting. This is a code. Fascinating. So there are those who have figured it out, and you can say it's theory. I mean, has it been proven? I mean, is it a fact? I'm not saying that it is. I'm saying it sounds pretty solid, like a pyramid to me. I mean, there's empirical data and information to support the theory. So then you also find out that the Egyptians, that there were these beings similar to Ea, Anu, and Enlil, perhaps it was they, who had been on Earth. Because I said Ea, Anu, and Enlil were here. I'm saying there is talk of there being similarly scientists, perhaps it was them and others, or maybe this is a different group that I'm alluding to. There was another group, or maybe it was the same group, and they were on Earth, and they made man at the time, that is hominids, Homo sapiens sapiens, they made humans in their own image. And they looked African, and they had features that were what you see on bipedal humans today. Those same faces were their faces. And they genetically created, modified beings on this planet. That's a theory. And so there's another story where one of these advanced beings of a group that were here doing genetic programs, building, engineering the planet. They're here on Earth at the time and doing what they were doing at the time. And some other spacefaring group comes down, transits Earth, stops off, and is like, hey, yo, man, we see you guys down here. So we just, came into the atmosphere of Earth, and you want to, like, hang out, like, for a minute and just kind of, like, shoot the shit? And they're like, okay. So they're playing some, like, game that apparently, like, advanced beings, they're familiar with this game. And it's a game where you have, like, a sphere, and you like, move the sphere around kind of like a baseball, but it's suspended, like, in the air, and you can, like, move it outward and, like hit it with some type of, like, device, and then it, like, goes outward, and it just kind of, like, zooms around like a ball that's, like, moving around in the air, right? And it doesn't land. And there's some strategy, and there's, like, some rules to it or whatever. So they were playing this game, and they're like, yeah, man, Earth is cool, like, right on, hey, man, thanks for letting us hang out with you. And the one dude, they, like, trapped him, and they, like, zapped him and, like, obliterated him, dude. They turned him into, like, like subspace particles and shit. Because the whole thing was they wanted some type of control. And so they wanted to eliminate him, even though he was, like, one of the progenitors of, like, ancient antiquity. That's just a story I heard. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. But knowledge of forever time is interesting. So back to Claude Shannon. So what Sylvester, that is Professor Gates, talks about is he says that the code that Claude Shannon stumbled upon, that he had figured out on a rudimentary level, when we're able to look at it now in today's age, this time on the timeline, when you look at it and you observe the frequency of it all, and you look at how it broadcasts, there are these Adinkra symbols. Now, if you're not familiar with Adinkra symbols, or what an Adinkra is, I very much highly encourage you, I urge you to look up the word Adinkra. Adinkra is an interesting concept. And so these Adinkra symbols, they're seen in math supersymmetry. They appear in supersymmetric mathematics. And when you see what an Adinkra is and what they look like, these Adinkra symbols, though African tribes and other ancients used Adinkras as symbols, these symbols that are the real world matrix, they are highly complex. And as not to say that what the ancients were using weren't, some of them, highly complex, these Adinkra symbols, whereas on the other hand, they are of some type, like if you've ever seen the Voynich manuscript, where it was written by some unknown entity. It supposedly has never been decoded. I mean, I can't believe that someone at the NSA hasn't decoded it. I really truly believe that NSA obviously fucking knows what this manuscript means. I mean, it's like, come on, dude, this is the National Security Agency. It's like fucking, cut the shit, dude. Give me a break. Aren't idioms fucking awesome? Cut the shit. Give me a break, man. So the Adinkra symbols that Professor Gates is referring to, they're not like what the ancient tribes were using to communicate and for like art and so forth. They are highly complex arrangements of data constructs and symbolism that is so out there that it's unknown as to whether we will ever be able to, in any short period of time, decode the information. Now, Do I believe that the NSA has no clue as to how these data are arranged and what they mean? Come on, dude, it's the National Security Agency, dude. I mean, we've been in fucking space and on interstellar missions to planets like Serpo for a long time, dude, without the public's knowledge. It's like, come on, man, we know some shit. I mean, the NSA is the world's largest employer of mathematicians, dude. And I mean, come on, dude. Like, I mean, we have supercomputers that can figure shit out for us, dude. So that being said, I don't know how much the terrestrial government actually knows. The non-terrestrial government that works with our terrestrial government, I mean, they're both our governments, right? It is the government, but you know, there's a separation. I mean, there are obviously like terrestrials who don't know the whole story, right? They don't know like the deeper truth reality of it all. But the terrestrial government, I'm sure there's some of the code that they figured out, but I mean, it's so ancient, you know, because it was designed, it was put here, and we're talking about. I said naturally occurring, but is the real world matrix? I mean, that's a misnomer, right? It's not really naturally occurring. It's a construct, dude. It's something that was fucking designed. God matrix, grand architecture, real world lattice. I mean, so when you look at a matrix in math, right, on a 2-dimensional piece of paper, and you're told, this is a matrix in math. We're looking at matrix addition, matrix multiplication, math matrices, right? You're like, yay, math matrices. I love math matrices. So we're talking about a 2-dimensional observation of what a matrix is. But in reality, outside that 2-dimensional space, that depiction of what a matrix looks like in math, right? Real world geometry, in other words, in the naturally occurring universe, if you're to create and design a matrix structure in 3 and 4 dimensions, if you're in 5 and beyond, if you're to create a real world matrix, one has said that the matrix is really a lattice, you know, like it's a lattice structure. It really is. So it's not just the real world matrix. You can also think of it as the real world matrix lattice. I know that sounds like emphatic and it's like, come on, dude, that's a mouthful. And that just sounds a little like fanciful and that's kind of stretching it a little bit. And I'm like, yo, that didn't even come from me. That's from the world of academia, man. That's out of the scholarly journals of quantum entanglement. So what do y'all know about a Kaluza-Klein? What do y'all know about the Kaluza-Klein? So when you look at a Kaluza-Klein, if you have this matrix lattice, right? This lattice and matrix. Inside that lattice matrix and matrix lattice structure, the individual spaces within that lattice, they can be thought of, if you consider that, okay, so if you take that all into account and say to yourself, okay, consider the following. The multiverse in and of itself is the lattice matrix lattice. It accounts for every universe that exists. So we can also, so the multiverse is synonymous with, that is, it is the matrix lattice. The multiverse is the matrix lattice. The multiverse is the real world matrix. So we're talking about every single universe exists within the matrix lattice. Well, going a step further, in each one of those spaces, you can call it a universe, you have a Kaluza-Klein structure. Every Kaluza-Klein can be thought of as an individual universe within the multiverse. That is the real world matrix lattice.